schedules with an extra
You mean
FCS
9?
game.
Why they don't go to 9?
Why they don't want to go to 9. They can pad their schedules with an extra FCS game, which is just a second bye for their schedule, which is totally unfair.
Yep.
So I get all that. I do think that there needs to be uniform scheduling between the two. So I'm definitely a proponent for them moving to a 9. I think it has to happen. What about you?
Well, I'm pretty on record. I think between the two, I do see a gap for one. I'll just be out front. We talked about it a bit ago, but I do think the scheduling agreement deal is off.
Yeah.
And might be off for a while. They may get back to it, but for this time period, I don't think they're doing any scheduling agreement like Moen was hoping they were going to do by now. I think they're farther apart than anybody could have guessed. At the same time, I think there is room to move. The Big 12, Big 10 going to strength of schedule, SEC going to 9 games. That is a gap it might be wide, but it is possible to be covered by a bridge. So we'll just have to see. I think the political pressure on the SEC, there's a lot of commentators that said the SEC shot over the mark last week, right? They were too aggressive. Sankey was too self-possessed. He didn't read the room, and certainly he didn't anticipate, I don't think, the measure of vitriol from Big Ten fans. I think he didn't care about the ACC and the Big 12, but the Big Ten stepped up, and it's become more of a political hot potato.
Yeah. I do think it's sad that that the whole Big Ten SEC scheduling agreement's off the table because, as a college football fan, I was really looking forward to those games. I think that would be such a. I hate watching Alabama playing Citadel or whoever these directional schools are. Yeah. To see a matchup between, Alabama and whoever, Michigan State, or, I would love to see that inventory. That'd be a great game every year.
Ryan Willie, $5 super chat says, I don't know why Big 12 fans are blaming the Big 10 for destroying the pack. Did we talk about that tonight? No. When the Big 12 did their part. Ryan, you're exactly right. The Big 10 and the Big 12 both had their parts of picking apart the Pac-12. There's no doubt
Maybe
about it.
Maybe the chat room's talking about that.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you so much for the super chat, though, Ryan. I really appreciate it. $5 helps us every little bit. We appreciate you, and thank you so much for being here tonight. Mr. Monkey says, brought up data, and I did see this data. I don't have the slide up. I did pass it today, and it didn't. The reason I passed it is because it doesn't mean anything to me, and I'll tell you why. He says the actual data, 2014, 5 Baylor, 5 TCU, 6. He's talking about teams that would have gotten into a playoff. Arizona 10, K-State 11, ASU. I'm not sure what that number means.
Totally irrelevant data. I mean,
well, that's my point. Yeah, it is data. Sorry, I'll let you finish. Go ahead, Stu.
I was going to say, it's a completely new conference. You don't have Oklahoma and Texas in the league anymore. You got the new 4 teams that came in last year. BYU, Cincinnati, UCF, and Houston, and then you got the new 4 additions with this year with the Pac-12 teams. It's a whole different league. I don't know how you can go on historical data to say the Big 12 is going to get 2+ teams in every year under this model. That makes no sense.
And I would just add to that, not piling on because I have different points. Those are good, really good points. My point is that we only have 1 year of the new CFP, and it was last year. It's a new world. Realignment's done. Realignment wasn't done until 2021, 22. So all that historical data to me, which is why I think this slide presentation by the SEC, believe me, if that data wouldn't have gone their way, they wouldn't have published it. That data was built around that historical model. And I think now with a 12, certainly with a 16-team playoff, you can throw those all out. All we have is 1 year to go off of for the new CFP and realignment. And the Big 12 got frozen out. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and Mr. Monkey says, I see your follow-up comment. Do you see the teams? Yes, I see the teams are still part of the Big 12. But again, that's back in 2014. If I'm going by 2014, well, Stanford was a powerhouse in 2014. That doesn't mean anything to me. Where Baylor might have stood back then, or where TCU was, where are they today? Where are they in today's context? I don't see how you can make that any predictor of where we are today. In my opinion, it just doesn't make any sense.
Replica, how we doing, brother?
Can you hear me, Bomber?
We can, yeah.
Hey, how's it going?
What's
Good.
going on,
How
man?
you doing? It's about time you called in.
Yeah, I've been pretty busy with work.
That's all right. I appreciate seeing you. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I don't understand the doom and gloom around the 5+11. I get fighting a narrative and the
Right.
perception, FPI and stuff like that, but I think you guys are looking at it from the wrong perspective.
I'd love to hear yours, Replica.
Let's just start off with the financial gap that already exists.
Yep.
If the 4422 goes through and they do the scheduling agreement, that increases the revenue gap between the top two conferences and the middle two. It increases the strength of schedule gap between the top two conferences and the middle two. You're going to have ADs calling Big 12 ADs to cancel games because nobody's going to want to have 11 or 12 P4 teams on their schedule. So I don't see that this is actually good news for the Big 12 that this scheduling agreement isn't going through and that they aren't in lockstep, because
Yes,
even with getting 2 playoff bids, that's all you're going to get in that format because of the gap in the strength of schedule with that scheduling agreement. So you will be in a situation where it's going to be near impossible for you to get that third team, and you're going to designate your school as inferior. Now, we already understand perception on the field, but once you put it in writing, you can't walk that back to a recruit. You can't walk that back to the coaches in your league. Like, what happens if they push that 4422 through and the next day Kenny Dillingham is making phone calls to, well, Kenny Dillingham takes a job in the SEC or in the Big Ten? What if Coach Prime takes a job in the SEC or the Big Ten because he feels like he has half the opportunity at schools and programs that aren't as good as his? Like, you kind of see that, like, you're neutering your coaches and like
those are
their ability to like do their jobs.
those are excellent points, all of them, and honestly, they're points and opinions I haven't heard a lot of. The recruiting, the coaching, everything you're talking about, I think that has a lot of value. I would just say that fundamentally, I am extremely concerned the Big 12, whether you formalize it or don't formalize it, in 6 years, the world will formalize it, that it's an inferior conference. So to me, I'd rather the throw the baby in the bathwater already out. There's no way to bring them back, and so I just think that going to the 4-4-2 is the best, most advantageous way for the Big 12 to get a team not only to get into the playoff but win some games.
Yeah, but at what cost? Because when you codify the ACC and the Big 12, Miami, Florida State, and Clemson are not just going to sit there and accept that.
No, they're probably
gonna
going to go anyway, though, right?
Maybe, maybe not. I can tell you, not saying I have sources in the SEC, but Kirby Smart is the most powerful man in the SEC right now. He has inherited that throne from Nick Saban, and he does not want Florida State and Clemson in that league. And in my opinion, unless that changes, it's going to have to take great forces in order to get those two teams in that league, because they're already squawking over non-conference games.
Right.
If they're squawking over non-conference games and a scheduling agreement with the Big Ten, why would they want to add Florida State and Clemson to that mix? I think right now the Big 12 and the ACC need to do everything they can to keep the Big Ten and the SEC at odds, because as long as they're at odds, they're not in lockstep and they can't formalize a breakaway if they're at odds with each other. Like the whole getting 2 Big 12 teams in the playoff thing, you just have to win your games, and the deck is gonna be stacked against you, but it was gonna be stacked against you with a 4-4-2-2 anyway. It was just, here, we're throwing you a bone so you can complain, so you can stop complaining about it. But in the background, we're gonna increase our money, we're gonna increase our revenue, we're going to limit the amount of non-conference big-time matchups the Big 12 and ACC can have. We're going to limit the viewership because that scheduling agreement is going to take away from potential games in those other two leagues, there's too much collateral damage to get one playoff spot. I think those two conferences. I know for sure the ACC could do better than two if Florida State and Miami got it together. Like in my opinion, in a 16-team format with 11 at largest, the Big 12 should be trying to put 3 teams in every year. And if you're not putting 3 teams every year, your teams aren't winning enough. And if you're the ACC, you got 3 power brands. You need to be trying to get 3 in every year too, maybe 4. Like you have to raise the bar in your league, and that's going to take time. But this is not the time to be waving the white flag, because if you wave the white flag now and could see even more power, there's nothing that's going to stop them from breaking away in 2031, in my opinion.
It's a good take, but the way I see it, the ACC is very top heavy with those top brands. With
very top heavy.
FSU and Clemson and Miami and Notre Dame, if you consider Notre Dame part of the conference. Mm-hmm. But outside of those teams, it's a pretty a much easier path to having a good record to get into the playoff than the parity that exists in the Big 12.
But that's even more reason why you should want at larges, in my opinion, because maybe you don't stuff your conference doesn't stuff the field. But if you can get 2 or 3, and the ACC can get 2 or 3, that limits how much the Big Ten and the SEC can get. Rather than we're going to give them 8 off the bat, and they're going to have the inside track toward the 3 at largest because of the scheduling agreement, the gap in strength of schedule, the gap in perception. Like that's only going
Replica,
to grow.
Let me present a math problem to you.
Okay.
So in the championship game of the Big 12 last year, both teams were 10-2.
Mm-hmm.
There was a tie by 4 teams at the top of the league, but those are the 2 that won a coin flip, I guess. And that being the case, the loser was going to have 3 losses, no matter what. Do you ever, in your wildest dreams, believe that as tight as the Big 12 is and how it eats itself alive, that there's ever going to be an opportunity for a 3-loss Big 12 team to get into the CFP?
Probably not, but your second and third best teams in the league shouldn't have 3 losses. And I think this tightness in the Big 12 is just there for now because you got teams in transition. Utah lost their quarterback. That completely derailed their season.
Yep.
Oklahoma State just completely just fell apart. Kansas got out the block slow. They didn't get to the start they needed to. I think it's easy to feel that way based off of the results that actually happened, but just because something happened last year doesn't mean it's going to happen this year.
Of course.
I think the Big 12 should be a much better conference, and I'm saying that as a Texas fan. Baylor should be much better. Much, much better. TCU, I don't know what their defense looks like, but they shouldn't get off to a slow start. They got a cupcake game against North Carolina. Right off the back, they should hammer North Carolina. Arizona State is bringing most of their team back besides Scatterby, and they got some other running backs who can run the ball. I just think there's more juice in this league than y'all are giving it credit for, and it's going to take time. But I think the Big 12 will look different 3 to 5 years from now, and I think it'll have a little more bite. I don't know what'll happen in 3 to 5 years in the ACC, but as long as those 2 conferences can keep the Big Ten and SEC out of lockstep, you're extending your life, essentially. It's like you're trying to extend this as long as you can until a new opportunity presents itself to maybe pull back some of the power. I know you won't pull all of it back, but it won't stay one-sided like this forever. College football has never just had one team or one conference just completely control everything indefinitely. There dynasties fall, even in business, like big companies fall all the time. New companies pop up out of nowhere, and that big company that may not have been a Fortune 500 company in year 3 could be that in year 10. Look at DoorDash. DoorDash was nowhere around 10 years ago.
Right.
but external forces put that that platform in a different position. So I think you just have to fight on the field and you have to mitigate any external factors that you control, and that's what you do on the field. You can't control ESPN cooking up an FPI graphic that's really just a rolling recruiting average. That's all that is.
Pretty much.
There's no like you got Texas A&M in the top 10. Like they don't even have a quarterback.
Exactly. But that RPI carries into the season.
It does.
It's used all season long.
I think you're going to see more pushback on it, though, particularly with the way the SEC showed out last week at their meetings. I think people are kind of getting tired of the FPI graphics in this campaign where they're constantly trying to convince people that they're so much better than everybody else. I think that narrative that they've been able to push for the last 10, 15 years, I think that's starting to come to an end. Especially at the Big Ten, they got a lot of teams in transition too, like Wisconsin and Michigan State and USC. If those schools can get it together and show what they can do at their best, that SEC narrative of them being so much better than everybody else and Sankey handing out pamphlets, that's going to come to an end because it's not going to work anymore, in my opinion. But
that was fantastic. Thanks so much for joining the show.
Anytime, man. I've met a lot of people interacting with your show and Flugar and Rock and also others. It's been a great community building.
Well, we appreciate you joining us tonight, and I'm going to end up asking Moen to clip out your answer because I think that's probably been the most lucid response to why the 5-11 fighting for that thing. While I still don't agree with you, I think it makes an absolute larger statement than just saying we don't want to be having the appearance that we're weaker, which has no value to me. So
that's just the political side. There's when your mark is talking about what's best for college football, it's a political move to kind of put pressure on those two leagues to, hey, everybody can see you're acting in your own best interest. Can you not do that just this one time?
That would be nice if you pull that off.
Like that's kind of the messaging, and that's kind of why Sankey was kicked off about it. But
all right. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Appreciate you joining the show. That was a fantastic call. Replica. That was what are your thoughts? That was well done.
No, I think it's a great take. And one of the things that I guess it helped me to look from the perspective of the ACC, and because I'm always looking at it from Utah's perspective in the Big 12, but from the ACC, if I'm if